Maria Bartiromo teasing a bombshell revelation from the president yesterday. Take a listen to this video she posted to X Tuesday afternoon.
Just left the president. It was a great interview. He said a lot about the economy, about the Iran war, about NATO. One thing that I'll leave you with, I said to him, Mr. President, you keep talking about the war like was. I said, is it over? He said, it's over.
But the Fox Business host is catching some flack online for teasing something that the president may have not actually said. Here's that portion of the interview that Bartiromo teased that Fox later posted on their account.
Well, you keep saying was. Is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. But we'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
Meantime, U.S. CENTCOM reports that the blockade on Iranian ports has been fully implemented.
Mediators are reportedly set to return soon for another round of negotiations as they aim to extend the fragile ceasefire that's set to expire on the 22nd.
So you can't be mad at Maria Bartiromo for using the tease and like getting people to watch her show. I mean, that was very clever. I know a lot of people are annoyed that she
Why would I be
overstated. Well, a lot of people are
I adore her.
I really like her too. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are annoyed like, okay, you act like he broke news in your interview. If he did do that, she would never say that the day before. Otherwise, it would be headlines everywhere.
Right. I think what Trump meant is that the military phase of the conflict the bombing is largely over with. That's what he means by was. That part is done. But the war is clearly not over in terms of the negotiation, in terms of the warlike behavior, the blockade of the blockade that's taking place. And he's also still doing that kind of his favorite negotiation tactic, which is to threaten. Like, that's why he says it's going to take him 20 years to rebuild, and it could be, the wall just got 5 feet higher, that kind of argumentation style, which sounds very harsh to us as Americans, as we're thinking we're going to harm them even more, we're going to spend even more money to bomb them, we're going to put even more American lives at risk. But he's saying that to try to bring them to the table in context of they're at the table, but in a more favorable negotiation. So that's why he's using this interview as an opportunity to pitch to the Iranian regime, this is how much worse it can get, not that he actually wants to visit that destruction on them.
I hear that, but the flip side of that is obviously the boy that cried wolf. And so he keeps going, we're going higher and higher and higher. And, there's already been a failed round of talks. So clearly, Iran is saying one thing, the U.S. is saying another thing. I mean, the U.S. has closed the already closed Strait of Hormuz. Is that back and forth that happened a couple days ago? Like, there's not the progress that makes this a one war. So when he says we've won, he said it like 3 weeks ago, and I don't know if he's repeated that since, but now he's saying it's close to over. Like, what does success actually look like? Because if we won 3 weeks ago and it's close to over, let's just stop it then, because oil prices are still rising. Right. Everybody's uncomfortable.
It the way you describe like your term paper, it's close to done. That means you haven't started.
That means you're starting at 3 a.m. in the morning. So, I think that there was an expert that was on News Nation earlier today, and they were saying, like, you're not going to get everything that you want from Iran in a negotiation. And so for the president to say it's almost over, that means that if Iran's at 5 years saying that they'll stop uranium enrichment for 5 years, and if the president is asking for 20 years, well, a middle ground does not look like just saying 20 years or nothing, because he started at never have nuclear weapons, right. Meaning never enrich your uranium to the level where you can.
But that's the negotiation tactic. That doesn't mean we're going to get never. That means he's putting it never. They say, so that's, you know what I mean?
No, but I truly believed that
when you do salary negotiations, you say, you make a really high demand so that you got to compromise somewhere north of what you thought you were actually worth.
You know why this is not salary negotiations? Because lives are on the line. We've already lost American lives. Wow. So that's why it's not salary negotiations. And the fact that the president has started this war because, rewinding, he didn't like the Iran nuclear deal that Obama had in place that had a deadline on how long they would stop building nuclear weapons. He wants to put another deadline on how long they would stop building nuclear weapons. He said he wanted it to be never. So he convinced Americans that he went to war because he needed to stop before these bad guys get out of control. So for 20 years, so then the next president in 20 years from now should also do the same exact thing and start another war over the same exact thing and rip up Trump's terrible deal that had a time limit on it. And so that's the question. Is the goal never, forever? Or is the goal 20 years? Or is it a medium between 5 and 20, which is more like maybe 12 years? Like, what does that mean? Then why did we do all this? He's going to have to answer that question for a lot of people. When it's all said and done and everyone combs through this, he really has to. And I know that he said the deal was terrible that Obama put in place. A lot of people didn't like it, but he has to thoroughly answer that question. There's going to be tons of people asking how this new deal, whatever it looks like, differs so drastically that we needed to go to war from a deal that we already had in place in 2015.
Yes, that's true. I mean, he does have to explain that. I think he's done not a great job of reassuring the American people that this is worthwhile in terms of negotiating some improved position. Maybe they should have focused on just the military aspect of this, the wild success of our bombing campaign, the ships we destroyed, the setback of their nuclear program, the containing of Iran in its capacity to harm U.S. allies. That is the major success that took place. The negotiations have not been as successful because what are we trying to get? I mean, the position we were in the beginning was the strait is open, and if you go back far enough, and we had some limits on their nuclear power. Now, critics of the original agreement will say there was no independent verification there, and so we couldn't trust them to follow through. We were giving them money. That it was too favorable to them. That's what critics of that deal say. But also the critics said at the time, or they claimed, the alternative to that deal was not going to be war, it was going to be a better deal. But what's turned out is the alternative was in fact war. And are we going to settle for a deal that is functionally the same thing? I think some Americans will be saying, well, why did we spend all that money then?
And how do you say that, how does the president go on Maria Bartiromo's show and say that we're close to over with the war, knowing that with the strait being closed and the U.S. adding an additional, also closing it, that just irritated China. So now we have even more of a friction, that conversation starting to bubble up with China. That's saying we get a lot of our oil.
Irritating China is not a bad thing.
I know, but it's another superpower. And certainly we don't want to get
into
the
real enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to get into a war with someone else that also has a warhead that we don't want to start that.
Well,
like, we're not trying to do World War III. Right, we understand
we're
that.
We're not trying to directly do World War III,
but so why are we trying to agitate China in this moment?
We're not going to.
If they have nothing to do
of irritating.
We're not supposed to. But if you heard Pete Hegseth speaking throughout this entire war, the last 6 weeks, when reporters directly asked him, "What are you saying about the idea that China and Russia are supporting Iran in certain ways, whether it's with warheads or other things?" And he said, "This war is directly with Iran." He kept saying that this war is directly. So it seems like he's not including them in this conversation. He wants this to be directly with Iran.
Think about what you just said. You're correct. China is supporting Iran. Iran pays terrorist groups to attack an American ally. So this is indirectly a conflict with China. We want to degrade China's ability to harm us. So in one way, you can't. This is probably the best case for doing this. Is that we are damaging an ally or a recipient of China's someone who has a relationship with China, which is a good thing because China is our antagonist, and we want to limit their allies' abilities to harm us.
So while at the same time that we're limiting China, we have to be aware of the full spectrum, and we're also enabling Russia, which is another huge enemy of ours, to make more money from the sale of oil because we took sanctions off of that country. Mm-hmm. So it's just a lot going on here where we're doing one thing to fix another thing, but also helping another enemy and really not helping ourselves.
The main enemy is China. I think should be clear to everyone. And we can pretend that's not the case, but that's the case.
Okay. I think there's a hierarchy of enemies. Russia is also a pretty bad actor.
Well, yes, but they don't have the capacity to harm us that China does.
All right. The DOJ is asking a federal court to throw out convictions against some Proud Boy members who were in prison for their involvement in January 6th. Don't go anywhere.